In this series of videos, I'm going to be showing you how to create this shelf system. This shelf system has the main bookshelf here that is parametric, and then it has a nested family with an array parameter, and it also has a sweep at the top that has a visibility parameter. So I'm going to be showing you how to create all of those things. We'll also be creating a catalog out of this shelf. Because I've got several different sizes, and whenever you have more than 6 sizes, I would say it makes a lot of sense for you to create a catalog system for the family so that you can allow the user of your family file to load just the size they need instead of every single size or type within that family. So I'm just going to change this to one other size so you can see what happens to it. Notice that when I change it to a new size, the materials disappear. That's because I changed the material to just one size and I didn't go through and change it for every one of them. But you can see that as I change the size in width or height, the number of shelves changes. The shelves stay the same width um, as the shelving system. And then when we get into using this into actual project, we can see how I can turn on and off the top molding piece if I want to. So let's begin with the real basics. We're going to build the shelf frame first and make sure it's fully parametric. So I'm going to start a new project, family rather, and the one that makes the most sense to work with would be the furniture family. And I'm going to set up some reference planes. So I want to create a reference plane for the depth of the shelf and the width of the shelf. So that's going to represent depth and width because we're looking at a floor plan. This is going to stay in place. Notice they're pinned because we have the front, center, left, right, and center, front, back. So this is going to be the front of the shelf. That will be the back of the shelf back there. So I do want to name these so I keep track of what they're going to be used for. So this will be shelf width, and this will be shelf depth. So I can reference those work planes in the future. I think it's going to make the most sense for us to create the extrusion for this in the front view. So we'll make the frame basically for the shelf, and then we'll make the back panel as a separate piece. So I'm going to now go to a front view, and there's the, let's just check to see what that says. It says shelf width, so that ensures we're in the correct view. And I'm going to create another reference plane for the height of the shelf, and we'll name that shelf height. All right, so we have all of our reference planes in place. I'm not going to worry about dimensions right now because I'm going to control that later on with some parameters. So I'm just going to build the shelf. So if we go to create, and I want to create an extrusion, I'm going to use the rectangle tool and just basically use the reference planes I just created as my guide to create a rectangle that matches those reference planes. Before I hit escape or enter, I want to lock each one of these little locks that comes up so that we lock that outside edge of the shelving to those reference planes. I do want to create another extrusion here, so now at this point I can hit escape and create the second extrusion. And this time I want to use the pick lines tool, and I want to set an offset, which will end up being the thickness of the frame for the shelves. So this will be 3/4 of an inch thick. And so then I can use the select line tool to just draw a line on the inside. So see how that line went in the wrong direction. That's okay, just do it again and place those lines. So just erase that one. Place those lines to the inside, and we know that they've been dimensioned correctly. Then I'll use the trim tool to just trim those lines together. Now, I'm going to leave that the way it is for now, and if it turns out I have to lock down the thickness of those between those lines after we start changing the size of the shelf, then we will. But for now, I want to keep it the way it is so that you can see what happens if we don't constrain that inside rectangle. So I'm going to grab the bottom line and move that up to a height of 4 inches. Is usually a shelf. The base is a little bit higher for the shelf. It's built in, and then all of our shelving units will come in. Our actual shelves that will array will come in here and move and go up. So that looks like that's going to work for uh, the basic shelf frame. I do want an extrusion of 1 foot for now, but we're going to see which direction that extrudes in. So I'm going to hit Finish Edit Mode, and then we need to look at this in 3D. So I'm using the Shift key and holding down my middle mouse button to see how does it look. I'm going to switch this to a hidden line view, and then I want to see where that shelf actually extruded in reference to my reference planes. So this looks pretty good here. I'm going to create that back panel, but I just need to know where I am in 3D space. So if I go to my reference level, I can see that it extruded 1 foot but in the wrong direction. So I can grab that arrow here, the extrusion shape handle, and move it back and lock it back here to that um, shelf depth reference plane. When I go back to that 3D view, it doesn't seem like anything has changed, but we now know that we have that extruding in the correct direction. So now our shelf is constrained. So what I want to do now is set up some parameters that we can flex and make sure that the shelving unit is working with the inside dimensions. So I'll do that in the next video.